See, it's not socialism.
But here's the question is, they voted for socialism. They voted for, let me finish.
No, I can't let you finish. If you're going to say Maduro's going to murder us, look, I'm not letting you finish. Because that's a damn lie.
Wait, but
and I've got a bunch of neighbors and friends who know this. Don't do this to me. Don't mansplain. I'm a 47-year-old girl.
The View walked straight into a political showdown, and Rand Paul, he came ready for battle. Armed with facts, confidence, and zero patience for nonsense, he dismantled their arguments one by one. And Whoopi Goldberg lost it. The tension in the room skyrocketed. The interruptions flew in from every angle. And just when things couldn't get any more chaotic, boom, Whoopi snapped. She screamed, she cut to commercial, and she left the audience sitting there in total shock. So, what did Rand Paul say that had Whoopi spiraling? Let's break it all down.
Actually, Turkey doesn't want Iran to take over everything. Israel doesn't want Iran to take over everything. And in fact, Israel actually stands up for themselves all the time.
We may end up being in a bigger war.
Let me finish. Don't interrupt.
You could feel the panic in the room. Sunny Hostin, struggling to keep up. Joy Behar, desperately trying to change the subject. It was brutal. And trust me, you do not want to miss a second of this. Before we dive in, do me a quick favor, smash that like button, hit subscribe, and turn on those notifications. Rand Paul was invited to The View to discuss his new book, The Case Against Socialism. The hosts weren't looking for a real discussion. They wanted a fight. And Rand Paul was more than ready to give them one. The moment Sunny Hostin opened her mouth, you knew she was setting a trap. Sunny Hostin claimed Venezuela's collapse had nothing to do with socialism. It was about corruption, not economic policies.
Here, but we don't get any free stuff. We don't have free health care. Well, our public education system is a problem.
Rand Paul responded saying, if you vote for socialism, you get socialism. And the crowd loved it.
The case against socialism. You know, Bernie Sanders is no longer alone on the debate stage. It seems like we're hearing more and more about socialism. In fact, 43% of Americans think it's a good thing. You are on the complete other end of that. Tell us about this book.
Well, one of the things we learned in writing the book is a lot of people say, well, we're not for Stalin, we're not for Hitler, we're for Scandinavia. So as we were researching the book, we actually found that Bernie Sanders' form of socialism actually is unpopular, and he would never get elected to anything in Denmark. In fact, the Prime Minister of Denmark, when he heard Bernie was going around saying they were socialists, says, no, we're not socialists. We have private property, a stock exchange, we have low corporate income taxes, we don't have a minimum wage. And the big difference, and this is where the big lie comes from, Bernie says we're going to give you all this free stuff, but we're only going to tax the rich people. In Scandinavia, they tax the working class, 25% sales tax, and an income tax starting at $60,000 is 60%. So really the difference between their country and our country is they do have more free stuff in Scandinavia, but they pay for it with massive taxes on the working class and the middle class.
And that's when Whoopi's face froze. She was not expecting that.
I live in Miami. There's tens of thousands of Venezuelan exiles living there. You talk a lot about Venezuela in your new book. I get a lot of political ads from the Republican Party. Donald Trump has tweeted this. Many have tweeted this. If you vote for Democrats, they will turn the United States into Venezuela. Do you think that's a fair statement to make?
Well, if you vote for a socialist, you might get socialism.
Come on, don't do that. Maduro is not a socialist. He's a corrupt, murderous thug who is starving his people.
That's not true.
That's not true? Maduro's not a thug and a murderer who's starving his people.
Let's have a conversation here. Chavez was a socialist, and socialism was the economic system of
Venezuela.
And
they stole. It's a kleptocracy. It's not socialism.
But here's the question is, they voted for socialism. They voted for, let me finish.
No, I can't let you finish. If you're going to say Maduro's going to murder us, look, I'm not letting you finish. Because that's a damn lie.
Wait, but
and I've got a bunch of neighbors and friends who know this. Don't do this to me. Don't mansplain. I'm a 47-year-old girl.
Thanks to Senator Rand Paul. His new book is called The Case Against Socialism, and we'll be right back.
Whoopi tried to cut off Rand Paul every time he spoke. So when the topic shifted to U.S. foreign policy, Rand Paul explained why endless wars were reckless and unnecessary. And that's when Whoopi lost it. She said, "You're just running away. What about our allies? What about the troops?" Rand Paul calmly replied to her saying, "Should we stay in wars forever? Should we keep sending American kids into harm's way with no clear mission? No, Whoopi, that's not leadership. That's recklessness."
One of the things I've always supported about President Trump is actually one of the things I liked about President Obama, that we said we were overextended, that the Iraq war was a mistake. I think it's one of the reasons President Obama beat Hillary Clinton, because Hillary Clinton had supported the Iraq war. I still think the Iraq war, regime change in the Middle East, and these wars are senseless. So does President Trump. He doesn't want to get us involved in another Iraq war in Syria. If anything, Syria is more complicated. The other is a practical concern. You have 50 soldiers. They're talking about moving 50 soldiers. Who goes to war with 50 soldiers? You have 50 soldiers and tens of thousands of Turkish troops amassing. The Turks are also allies. The Free Syrian Army were our allies for 7 years. They're allied with the Turks. The Kurds have been our allies. The Kurds, in all likelihood, are now going to be allies of Assad to try to carve out a place in Syria for themselves. It's a really complicated question. I guess from my perspective, I say, any of these people out here, their kids have to go to war. War's not a chess game. People lose their limbs and people die, and I think it's the least we owe to kids that we're going to send into this war. Why are we going to war and who are we fighting?
Whoopi tried to push back, but Rand wasn't quite done yet. Rand Paul carried on by saying, Turkey is causing chaos in the region, but you want to pretend this is simple? It's not. And maybe if you actually listened instead of shouting, you'd know that. Ouch. The audience went silent, and Whoopi's face turned bright red, and she did the only thing she could think of in that moment. She cut to a commercial break. Yep, she just wrapped it up and ended the segment right there.
But isn't there...
So,
go ahead.
I'm sorry. So, if you have allies and they are working with you and fighting with you, and 24 hours somebody wakes up and says, "No, we're out."
Right.
Is that the right way to do this?
I think the way we look at war is we don't look at
No. Is that the right way to do it?
Let me answer the question.
Okay.
When we decide whether or not we're sending our young people into harm's way, we should obey the Constitution, which says we should declare war and put them in a war theater. But let me finish.
Okay.
And here's the thing about it, is if you ask these people, Lindsey Graham and the Cheney war and all these warmongers that want to stay at war forever, who are we going to declare war on? They don't know who. We're going to declare war on Turkey, our ally,
Should we
the
ever
Free Syrian
walk
Army, our
out
ally?
in the middle? It's like walking
We
out.
should never be there in the first place.
That's not the question. No, that's all good.
Then Sunny Hostin tried to pull the classic The View move. Just throw out a ridiculous talking point and hope nobody notices. She came after Rand Paul's tax policies, and after Rand calmly responded to all her points, all she had left to say was, Donald Trump doesn't pay any income tax.
Taxes here, but we don't get any free stuff. We don't have free health care. Well, our public education system is a problem. Seems like the only people that get free stuff are the very, very wealthy.
We have a different form of taxation in our country. Ours is much more progressive. So we've taken the poor off of the rolls. They don't pay income tax anymore. Most people below $50,000 don't pay any income tax. The top 1% in our country pay 40%.
Our audience says that's not true.
Well, the IRS statistics say that the top 1% in our country pay 40% of the income tax, and that those making less than $50,000...
Donald Trump doesn't pay any income tax.
Ouch. Sunny had nothing. She just sat there, blinking, scrambling for another way to flip the conversation. Then Whoopi's viral moment, desperate to recover, tried to play the neutral card. Whoopi Goldberg said, I'm not left, I'm not right, I'm just American. To which Rand Paul responded with, well, Whoopi, if you're just American, maybe you should actually listen to ideas that don't fit your narrative. That's what true Americans do. Mic drop, the audience exploded. Whoopi, completely frozen. And that's when The View hit the panic button. They rushed to cut the segment as fast as they could. I mean, they shut it down. Fast. But the damage was already done. It spread like wildfire on social media with hashtag like Whoopi Meltdown and hashtag Rand Paul Destroys. The View started trending immediately. Even The View's own fans were calling them out. One viral tweet nailed it. The View says they empower women, then they spend an hour talking over a man who calmly lays out facts. The hypocrisy is unreal. And now, rumors are swirling. ABC execs reportedly panicking. Advertisers pulling out. Could this actually be the beginning of the end for The View? One thing's for sure, Rand Paul walked in prepared, took on every one of their weak arguments, and left completely unfazed. And Whoopi? She just sat there, humiliated. But now I want to hear from you. Did Rand Paul just end The View for good? Was Whoopi's meltdown the final straw? Or do you think The View will somehow survive this? Drop a comment below and let's discuss. And before you go, make sure to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications because trust me, This story isn't over yet.